We're going to keep the conversation moving along here because another name that has popped up that I do think is very interesting for the Chicago Bears is Aaron Glenn.
Yeah.
He's going to be interviewing with the Bears this Saturday along with Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson is the front runner, it seems, in everybody's mind for this next Chicago Bears head coaching job. But Aaron Glenn, to me, is somebody who I think you have to keep a little bit of an eye on here because when we talk about that leader of men mentality, from everything that I've heard, he's Dan Campbell. From everything that I've heard, he sets cultures like that. Now, I also think you need to go out there and you need to look. And when you talk about Aaron Glenn, you need to say, well, let's also have a conversation on the fact that I'm not terrified of this Detroit Lions defense. Haven't been terrified of this Detroit Lions defense for some time. The offense is what we're talking about. The offense is what leads the way. Even when they were fully healthy, I didn't sit there and go, well, we're not going to be able to we're not going to be able to sit there and score points on Detroit. I think that when you're having a conversation about Aaron Glenn, you have to have a conversation more about him, the leader, which could be something that comes into play, versus him, the DC, because the conversations that I'm hearing around his name is that he's going to set that tone. He's going to be a bigger leader than he is a DC. Now, he may still come in here and call plays, but what he brings as far as setting a culture, setting a tone, that is why you want a guy like Aaron Glenn in the building.
No, I totally agree. And I actually read an article that really went over some former players. And even when he was connected to the Saints, you had Drew Brees, you had Jonathan Vilma, the likes of those guys that were really speaking out, including also Dan Campbell, talking about how he develops players. It mentions he's about structure, organization. Not that other coaches aren't, but you can see proof in the pudding of what he's done in Detroit. It's not a bunch of superstars. It's with fourth-round guys, fifth-round guys, backups. They're going to be the same really good players that may not be on the team, but it talks about just how he has everybody prepared and the people buy into what he's doing. And so you need a guy like that. You need a guy that even if you don't have the greatest talent in the world, those guys are going to just run around with their head cut off for you because they believe in what you're saying. And that's the kind of the culture and the kind of attitude that we need here in Chicago. I mean, you're under the tutelage of Dan Campbell. You know what Dan Campbell said coming in. He wants to bite kneecaps off. And so he already set a certain standard that sounded crazy.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it worked. And everybody in Detroit is buying in. And like you mentioned, they obviously have a very good offense. But when it comes to Aaron Glenn's credit, they have one of the better run defenses as well.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that the Bears actually lacked this year with all the problems and all the injuries is the run defense. And so when you bring somebody in here that's committed to that side of the ball, the only question mark for me is, will he tap into the maximizing of Caleb Williams? Potentially, I believe maybe that's something that can still work. If you're a guy who's a leader of men, and I know we're going to get into that, maybe that doesn't matter as much if you can still have the whole team buy in, because now what if the offensive line improves and those guys are on the same page and you get them disciplined, you get those guys putting max effort, well, then that contributes to the offense being better. That contributes to the offense being more efficient. So it all works hand in hand, whether or not he's an offensive-minded or a defensive-minded coach. But with this guy being a defensive-minded coach, I think, yes, he will bring that to the table. You see evidence of that in Detroit. I don't know if he'll be my top candidate, but I do like him in the top three as far as if finalists. If certain people are already like the Ben Johnsons are already not going to come here or they're not going to be in the running, then Aaron Glenn would be my guy as a backup.
I think here's my question, and maybe this goes into the leader of men conversation. If it does, whatever, it all blends together. We all having conversations out here. And like the video if you have not done so, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. There's about to be a lot of change in Detroit. I would assume both coordinators end up getting head coaching jobs.
Yeah.
Do you believe Dan Campbell will still be the same guy? Do you believe that Dan Campbell will still be the guy that finds the right coordinator, that finds the right process, that finds the right DC, that is still able to go out there and set the standard for this team? Is he a John Harbaugh? Is he a Mike Tomlin, if you will? Although Tomlin, got some question marks out there. But is he one of those guys? Because that's the real question if you want to take a guy from history.
Will he replace it and still be on the same?
Well, more so, right? Because
plane.
that's kind of what you're going to have to do here.
Yeah.
If you're the Bears, you're going to have to, if you bring him in, you're going to have to probably constantly bring in offensive coordinators. You don't have to bring in DCs. You'll probably end up finding guys to stick around, but you're going to have to constantly go through the ups and downs and the changes. He's from that tree. He's played in the game. He's been a part of the game. He's been coaching for years. He's got a long resume. Do you believe that he is a guy who transcends, or very much like Dan Campbell, like I'm sure many Detroit people think, who transcends, I can lose my coordinators and still be me? Because if you do, I think that he deserves a serious consideration.
Well, specifically, if you're talking about Dan Campbell, I can't see that yet because he hasn't done it. But if that happens, then sure, if both of his guys who definitely deserve head coaching opportunities leave, and he still keeps the Detroit Lions on track, obviously they've gotten their talent level up to a certain point where I do believe they can kind of be a mainstay in the NFC North as far as a powerhouse, a competitive team. Sure. But if we're talking about Aaron Glenn coming in, and that's another reason why I said he's not my top candidate, is because, again, going back through all that circus and cycle that the Bears always do, they bring in somebody like a defensive-minded head coach, and then you have the OC who does good to a great job. Now he's up for a head coaching position. Now he leaves. Okay, now you got to replace him, and then it's a different maybe scheme or philosophy for Caleb. Caleb's already gone through 3 guys in one season.
Yeah.
I don't want to go through that carousel constantly year after year after year just because we're having success, which is why I do want an offensive-minded head coach preferably. But if Aaron Glenn comes in, maybe there could be some stability. I'm not exactly sure. That is a good question. That's why I don't want to really take a chance on it. I don't mind, again, having the guy like Aaron Glenn come in and be that coach. But again, that's why he's not my first guy, because I don't want to do exactly what we've been doing. We talked about making differences in this organization. That's the difference that we need to make, is not allowing for people to just come in the building and then leave because they've done a great job and now they're up for another promotion somewhere
else.
I
think that's and we can get into it.